Thank you.
So welcome, friends, relatives, neighbors, East Coast, West Coast, all around. It's always a joy to be together and learning. And we're here to be learning and listening and putting into practice important takeaways. So it's quite an honor to have Dr. Rosenthal with us. I'm going to share her bio. She's an expert in personalized lifestyle management with a focus on injury prevention, pain management, health optimization, and performance. Dr. Rosenthal is a physician with a private practice in New York City. She's a specialist in physical medicine and rehabilitation. Dr. Rosenthal sees a variety of patients in her Manhattan practice, where she is now, including world-renowned musicians, dancers, choreographers, and writers, as well as marathon runners and other athletes, and treats such conditions as back pain, tendinitis, repetitive stress disorders. She's also a consulting physician for the New York City Ballet, American Ballet Theater, Metropolitan Opera, MTV Video Music Awards, and several Broadway productions, and is herself a dancer and a marathon runner. Dr. Rosenthal is an author, educator, media spokesperson for the American Osteopathic Association. She's a member of the medical advisory boards of MedShadow and Plant Powered Metro New York, as well as a council directors member of True Health Initiative. Dr. Rosenthal is host and co-founder of the podcast Power to the Patient. So welcome, Dr. Lillie Rosenthal. We invite you to open up your screen, say hello, share your knowledge with us.
Great. Thank you so much. Really looking forward to sharing with you. I am screen sharing, but hold on. There we go. Can you guys see the first slide?
Not quite yet.
Not quite yet. Okay. It says I am screen sharing. Hold on.
What do you see?
I see my first slide.
Okay.
So hold on. Let's go back.
Maybe it's me. I'm going to go to gallery view side by side with speaker, and I see it. So we're fine. I was on speaker only. So for the group, if you go to gallery speaker, you're on it. So we're good now.
Okay, but hold on. I'm not able to. Can we go to the first slide? Can you do? Oh, here we go. There we go. Okay.
All
Hello.
right.
Now we got the board. Can you all see the
Yeah,
first
that was the hard part.
Yeah. Can you all see that? We're good?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, fabulous. First of all, thank you. Welcome, everybody. Really looking forward to spending the next hour with you all. You have a little bit about my background. Full disclosure, I'm going to hopefully give you lots of sort of data-driven, evidence-based ideas of how to think about pain, because our current, maybe not you guys, but the current conventional wisdom is let's just sort of suppress the pain. But I strongly believe and know that there are so many better, efficient, ethical ways to do it. So I want to share with you my 30 plus years. Ed was nice. He didn't sort of give that background, but 30 plus years of treating people and helping them basically feel and function better in the most efficacious, ethical and data-driven way. So Ed, I love you're in your kitchen because I'm going to be talking a lot about food, because food is the root cause of and the master key for our health in general, and certainly the most, pardon the pun, important ingredient in treating pain at its root cause. So hello from New York City. And let's get moving. This is my bio. I think this all these slides will be available to you guys. So my learning objectives are we're all, knowingly we have a tremendous pain problem in the US. And Irena, thanks for that wonderful. Pain is definitely an opportunity, if you will, to think differently about how we sort of create health. But I hope to, in the next less than an hour now, educate on the scope of the US pain problem and inspire you, as I mentioned, to rethink pain as really a puzzle, something to be solved, rather than a symptom to be suppressed, and presenting the evidence, and something that many of you may know this language, some of you may not, something which is called a whole food plant-based diet. And when I say whole food, this is not a commercial for Whole Foods, the store, but it's a sort of kind of eating that is anti-inflammatory and actually can significantly reduce our pain. And I hope to present a comprehensive, effective, and responsible, and mostly practical approach to certain foods that I see, that I literally prescribe for my patients. So moving along, the price of pain, this number keeps going up every time I give this talk, but we spend about $300 billion on pain relief, and pain relief from everything from, over-the-counter medications to pharmaceuticals, to procedures, to CBD oil, to Tiger Balm, and I'm not saying any of these things are right or wrong, but we're really a nation in pain, and quite frankly, post-COVID, it's getting worse. And when I say pain, I also just want you to say it's physical pain, but it's also sort of emotional, mental pain, which can transfer into physical pain. I'm not a psychiatrist, but I am a physiatrist, which sounds like a psychiatrist. And as you'll see, I really take into account this sort of mind-body connection of what pain is. I read there's an idea out there, which I definitely align with, that pain is actually an emotion, which is sort of an interesting kind of way to think about it. So we're spending a lot of money on pain pills, psychotropic medications. We have a crisis. Unfortunately, it's not just the dollars that are spent, and it's not really helping, because we're sort of have more pain problems than ever, and the human suffering, which we can do this so much better. Trying to advance. Oh, hold on. Okay, this is the way. So some of you might not sort of be aware of this, but we call it a healthcare system, but we really sort of have a sick care system, meaning that things are done on the back end. We're not really thinking preventatively. It's a little bit, and I don't want to get political here, but it's a little bit like climate change. It's not like an immediate emergency, although we were just chatting before this talk about, you guys, and a lot of you are in California, like we're seeing the effects of and consequences of things that we've been doing. It's the same thing with the body, right? We unfortunately, the medical system is not set up for various reasons to be a health promotion system. And I, not really single-handedly, but I strive to change that every single day with every single patient, every single talk. Some of the practical reasons for this, average doctor visit in the US, you may or may not know this or have experienced this, is 6 minutes. It's very hard to get a full history and physical examination and really figure out the puzzle of pain in 6 minutes. It's basically impossible. We also have a culture, not just in medicine, but in general, that we want instant gratification, right? We're Americans. I mean, like I say that kind of, a little, as a criticism, but a kind of a fact, right? We want it now. We want relief from our pain, and not to be at all unsympathetic to people who are in pain. And there is a place certainly for pills and procedures, but it's not for everybody at the degree that we are prescribing here in the US. And it's certainly not working. We have the highest expenditure. We're spending lots of money on pain problems, and we have a super poor return. People are addicted to medication. People are still in pain. We're just not doing it right. Our chronic disease system, which you may think, why? Yeah, our chronic disease situation, things like cancer, high blood pressure, diabetes, it's going to basically bankrupt. I'm not here to sort of gloom and doom. I really have good ideas for how we can sort of change this, but we're, spending a lot of money on things that are not working. So it's funny. My daughter, who's 23, just got into a public health program. I'm super proud of her, a master's of public health. But we really don't have a robust and aligned public health system, because the things that I'm going to say should really be known to everybody and part of our public health. Prevention, unfortunately, doesn't pay. There's not enough time for doctors, even if they were inclined to be talking about prevention. My personal approach is I go for the root cause of the root and the causes and the multifactorial causes, which are often lifestyle related. And that doesn't mean anything fancy. It just means the choices that we make every day. And I like to say, I like to change the agency, of doctors being in charge of our health to, shifting the power dynamic to patients. And that's why I really enjoy educating. So yes, we just went through a pandemic. All of these things existed before, but it's sort of ramped up at the moment. We have, we know that depression, anxiety, especially in young people, is totally through the roof. Obesity is on the rise. We have this sort of, new idea of, we're going to inject everybody with. Somebody's not on mute. We got that? Okay. So we have, obesity is through the roof and even in children. And the answer from the American Academy of Pediatrics, unfortunately, is for obesity, which is the root of a lot of pain and chronic disease, is an injectable medication, things like Ozempic, which you may have seen in the news, and bariatric surgery, which is, abdominal surgery for kids. So, in my opinion, it's criminal. It's really not the way things are going to be. This is not an easy fix, but those are not the most ethical and responsible reactions. Again, it's a knee-jerk reaction to treating symptoms. So alcohol use is up since the pandemic. You may think, why is this pain? Pain is emotional again and physical. A lot of people have changed their office setup for good or for bad. Our home have different ergonomics or the way that our bodies are set up. Our exercise routines have been shifted, some for the better, and sleep has been disrupted for people. So we have on top of sort of a trajectory of not being super feeling good as Americans. And now we have the overlay of the pandemic and the challenges that ensue. Oh my gosh, how many years ago? Maybe 40 years ago now, I found out I was applying for medical school, and I found out that there was this like phenomenal sort of parallel track of something called osteopathic medicine. You guys are in California. You may be a little more sort of hip to this idea. We're about, I don't know now because we keep growing, but maybe 20% of the physician force. I chose it because it's more integrative and holistic. And it was sort of aligned with my personal values of being a dancer and being a vegetarian at a young age. And I'm like, oh, this is cool. This is like modern medicine with all the science and the training. It's a fully licensed physician, but I get to learn what's called osteopathic manipulation, which is manual work. And I could focus on actually preventing disease. So some of the principles of and I'm a true DO. Treat people from, with pain problems mostly at their root, with things like osteopathic manipulation for mechanical problems. And we're going to get into sort of educating people on what they can do for this on their own. But something, two things I want to say that are super important. Sometimes we get stuck if we have pain or we have a chronic disease or, we're just sort of, we have this, it's sort of a label. But we often forget that the human body is live tissue. I know that sounds crazy to like, it's basic, but we are self-healing machines. And if we give in the right inputs, we're going to have a better outcome. So I just I see that as an opportunity for people to make changes at any age and at any stage. And I also like to remind people that pain is not really a diagnosis. It's a signal that something's up, or multiple things are up. And it's something to really figure out as a puzzle and not just suppress with a medication or a procedure. Again, needed sometimes, but that should not be the first line of defense. And here I am in New York City and, 2023, and living, I'm not off the grid. We live in a very technological world, but I always say that my most important diagnostic tools are my eyes to observe my ears to hear the history and have the conversation with my patients, and my hands to diagnose what's going on. So physical examination, and my heart for compassion and sort of taking care of the human being in front of me. So if you're not getting that kind of care from your doctors, or you are practitioners, I would hopefully inspire you to sort of get back to some basics, which is super powerful. I wrote an article. I've written several articles, but you can read this later. Rethinking the pain puzzle, because again, I think about pain as really a puzzle. I consider myself a little bit of a medical activist, because some of the things that are going on, and recommendations even from professional organizations are really not the best we can do. And again, pain is a signal and not just a symptom to be suppressed. So let me propose some solutions. I'm a super practical person. And this is really sort of an expanded version of this article. So if you wanted to reference it later, there are 5 things how I try to sort of focus on when I'm seeing somebody. I try to find root cause. I try to find, so many of the things I see are mechanical. Etiology just means the cause. So they're mechanical in nature. So why are we giving like chemicals to treat things, right? So as a DO, again, I look at sort of the ergonomics and the biomechanics very seriously. I consider patients as a 360, as a full human being in front of me, and not just the pain or the diagnosis. And I'm also very carefully considering risk and reward before I'm prescribing anything, which is honestly mostly food and exercise. And again, the agency, in my very strong opinion, is to be shifted from people taking care of themselves, because your health really is in your hands. So I said a couple of these things before. I'm just going to say that the body, I often say this, that the body doesn't lie. It's giving us some information, and it should behoove us to really pay attention to this information, and not just, ignore it or try to suppress what's going on. Mechanical problems, I literally read the body with my hands, which sounds kind of maybe a little woo-woo, but you guys are from California, you can take that. But what it really means is that I'm doing a physical examination. I'm literally putting my hands on a patient. I'm not getting x-rays and MRIs before I talk to my patients. In fact, I rarely get x-rays or MRIs, because if I speak to a patient long enough, get the history and do a good physical examination, the answer often appears. I'm really not for what I call chemical band-aids, which is, a sort of poor way to just suppress symptoms. If you haven't thought about this before, this sort of equation guides me, which is structure and function are very intimately linked. Meaning, a simple example, if you have a drinking straw, which we shouldn't be using so many of these for the environment, but if it's kinked, we're not going to get the flow that we need. So if you think of it with the body in the same way, if we're posturally challenged, we're not going to get optimal function. So the patient 360, a lot of what I do, honestly, is, pain is subjective. We can't put you into sort of a pain meter or reader. It's really something that the patient reports, and I listen very carefully, and even between the lines of what people are saying and presenting. And I see my role very seriously of explaining what exactly is going on and why they're in pain. And fear could be a motivator, right? But a lot of people are really worried about, and rightly so, if I have pain, does that mean I can't walk again? Will I be able to, play with my grandkids? Is something awful going to happen to me? My aunt and, uncle had this problem, and is this going to befall me? So, make sure you have practitioners, or that you are practitioners that look at this seriously and listen. Mind, body, spirit.
So Erin, you're going to be gone when I'm doing this tour.
Yeah, I'm getting my hair cut this afternoon.
Excuse me 1 second. Cindy, if you could mute yourself,
I'm going to
please.
check with him about the time.
Cindy, please mute.
Okay. Okay, so oftentimes there's a multifactorial, it's not only one thing that's causing the pain. To keep that in mind, right? Once you found one thing, it's not, okay, we're done. I really look at somebody very comprehensively. And risk reward basically means whenever I prescribe something, and by the way, I never really said this before. I rarely, if ever, prescribe medication. I'm going to say that again because I'm a pain management physician and we have an opioid crisis. So that is a very minority position that I hold. I rarely prescribe medication for pain.
Hi, we can't hear you. Dr. Rosenthal, we can't hear you.
Doctor, if you'll just unmute yourself, we'll
Okay.
begin.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Now,
Okay.
yes.
Great. Okay. So a lot of the things I'm prescribing are non-pharmacological, things like heat, ice, arnica, which is a topical anti-inflammatory. In New York, it's a very small part of my practice, but I prescribe medical cannabis, risk-benefit ratio. That versus an opioid, it's like not even close. So not going to go into all the details of that, but that's something that I found that's helpful for people specifically, migraines and inflammatory bowel conditions seem to respond super well to medical cannabis. So power to the patient. Just rethinking what medicine is. We think of really kind of like a pill box or something. Medicine is really a verb. Medicine is something that we do every day. And it's something that is actionable. I like to mention the word epigenetics. Some of you may not know this word. Some of you may know this word. We're very focused, and a lot of people are very focused on their sort of DNA, and we've done an incredible job of mapping the human genome. Genomics is sort of a burgeoning idea about health, but it's really the more interesting and the more accessible part of our situation with our DNA is something called epigenetics, which sits up. It's the things we do every day. It's our environment that affects the expression of our genes. And I can't think of a more exciting opportunity for people to take control, the things we eat, the things we don't eat, the things our movements, our sleep, our stress, all affects our DNA. And that's huge because a lot of people do not realize that the DNA, a lot of people think, oh, my mother had this and I'm just destined to have this. And it's often not. It's usually the environment that is similar. The things we're eating, the things we're not doing, the things we're doing that can either push our DNA expression in a more helpful or a more harmful direction. So telomeres, I'm going to get a little sciencey on you. Telomeres are the caps of our DNA. If you think of it like a shoelace, the shoelace is the shoelace. And then we have the little plastic ends of the shoelace, which, well, in a way protects the shoelace. Probably never thought that shoelaces need a lot of protection, but if the shoelaces are DNA, telomeres are naturally occurring. And with sort of good lifestyle habits, youth, less stress, our telomeres are actually longer and protect our genetic material. When we introduce things like unhealthy diet, lots of stress, poor sleep, our telomeres actually shorten and expose our DNA to degenerative inputs. And the most incredible thing is that if we take care, if the food we eat is supportive and healthful, if we take care of our stress, and stress is ubiquitous. So it's not like we can ever get rid of stress, but if we have mindful practices, if we exercise, we can actually lengthen that shoelace cap to protect our DNA. I get very excited about these things because we have agency and opportunity to actually believe it or not, even reverse and prevent chronic disease, which we're going to get into in a moment. So lifestyle choices regulate pain. So there's this sort of new-ish, I'll call it a kind of specialty of medicine. They're sort of working on residency programs, something called lifestyle medicine, which I alluded to a little earlier, which is honestly, it's just sort of an overlay of things that I learned and sort of knew years ago. This is not new science really, but it highlights that how lifestyle choices are super powerful in that 80% of how we age, feel, and function is how we behave, which I know that puts a lot of pressure on us to kind of, do things that support us, but you can't find this in a pill or a procedure. And 80% of chronic diseases, which is sort of bankrupting and causing tons of human suffering, things like cancer, diabetes, heart disease, are reversible and preventable with things like a whole food plant-based diet, which I'm going to get into, exercise, sleep. Like, this is not a joke. This is true. This is science. I don't say things casually. I'm a physician who has, credentials and malpractice insurance. So these are things that I see. I always say it's good news for people who want to do something about it, and not so good news for people who really don't want to sort of be accountable for this. And I just want to say that I just developed a corporate wellness program, which was really well received. And I'm very sensitive to that. These are not easy changes for people to make. And changing your habits and changing your behavior is really, it's work. I get it, but I'm hopefully going to convince you that it's worth it. So what I do when I see a new patient is I have a personalized 5-point sort of plan. I'm literally writing, here it is, my New York State prescription pad, which I'll show you. I'm literally writing down things like food, movement, sleep, stress, what are the vices and devices, because these are the 5 things that literally keep people healthy. So I really go granular with each person, N of 1. There are some, I know you're all individuals with your own challenges, but I'm going to give you obviously the overview. But when I'm sitting with a patient, it's an N of 1. I go through, what are you eating? How are you moving? I literally am asking these questions. So food, which is a super fun topic to talk about because it's yummy, is, food should be delicious. It should be, something we look forward to. It should be enjoyed. It's social, all of that. But it also is our fuel, and it also can be our medicine. So Hippocrates' old, let food be thy medicine. Again, Ed, love that you're in that kitchen. I hope there's a lot of fruits and vegetables around. And I'm just going to cut to the chase because I know it may be confusing because there's lots of politics, unfortunately, around food, and there's lots of camps and ideologies, and so I'm going to really break it down for you. As I say, the science is not confused on this. The more we can get towards a plant-based, plant-forward, and I'm going to sort of break that down, real food, not processed, fruits, vegetables, nuts, beans, whole grains, and invariably there's always like, what about chicken? What about fish? Okay. If you eat that in smaller amounts, but I always say the 80%, 90% of your diet, and then there's this sort of the organic question, and, it gets sort of hot, politicized and personalized, but, so many people will come in and say like, oh, I shouldn't eat bananas because I know there has a high glycemic index and it's really high in sugar. And I am definitely of the opinion that bananas are not your problem. Like, that is not we often, throw the baby out with the bathwater, or we often lose the forest through the trees, or whatever all those expressions are. If you stick with things that grow, things that, come from the earth, less things, I call it, I kind of came up with this, which people seem to like, stay away from the BBB, the bagged, boxed, and branded. So there's always somebody in the audience who say, but what if I buy my salad in a bag? Or what if I buy, almonds in a bag? Okay, yes, I can't, but, for the most part, better to bring your own bag, right? We have environmental challenges too. You guys are way ahead of us in California. And I know not everybody's in California, but, we're just starting up our compost program. Last time I was in California, like there's a consciousness, I think, that you guys have, which we're sort of getting here. But the more you eat real food, and then there's, this wellness program that I just developed, we sort of had a myth busting section. So, like Impossible Burger, which is vegan, kind of not so much, right? Because it's processed. So we really want to get that's better for the planet, but not really good for the health. So I hope I'm not getting into the weeds here with you guys, but to keep it simple, the more fruits, vegetables, I just went, fruits, vegetables, beans, whole grains, avoid processed foods and ultra processed foods. Avoid, sugar is inflammatory. We want to keep hydrated, mostly with water, herbal tea, coffee is not a problem. And we want to there's a sort of new word out there, which is getting some, public attention. Our microbiome, we have trillions of organisms that live in our gut. There's something called the gut-brain axis, which means the food we eat affects our mood and certainly our immune system. So, if we stopped right here, I think I'd be delivering sort of the most valuable information that food is really the master key for helping or harming ourselves. And I know it's hard when we're blasted with commercials and, it can be socially isolating to like eat like this, but for health, again, the science is not confused. Why is this a good idea? Well, it literally prevents and reverses chronic disease. Believe it or not, most people who are diabetic or pre-diabetic are 2 weeks away from not being diabetic or pre-diabetic. I'm going to say that again, and that's research-based. I have a whole extensive collection. If you see on the bottom of the slides, I have study upon study upon study about everything that I'm saying. But if, and that there's type 1 and there's type 2 diabetes, and, we only have an hour, but even type 1, you can do better by eating a plant-based diet. 2, I see it as a tremendous opportunity for people to, and I often give my patients a challenge, and I'm not an endocrinologist. People what are you doing? But how can I not help somebody with back pain when I know that they're diabetic or pre-diabetic and I have this information? So that's why I go out of my lane regularly as a pain management, non-surgical orthopedist, because I know this. And again, food is thy medicine is a super powerful sort of thing to attend to. Longevity, we live longer. You may have heard of something called the blue zones. There are places on this globe where people are eating well, getting sunshine, moving regularly, having a sense of community. They do better. This kind of eating decreases cancer risk, weight loss, which a lot of people struggle with. This can really, literally reduce cravings. So I kind of give my patients the 2-week challenge. Try this for 2 weeks and let's talk. It makes us happier because, again, there's a mood-food connection. Immune function, where a lot of people are taking a lot of supplements for, immune. And I'm a food first person, really. Sometimes places like New York now, a little vitamin D in a supplement form is not a bad idea, but food is really we can't replace food with pills. And I'm going to put a big plug in there for the planet that if we're eating sort of more simply from the earth, we know we can really sort of help our sort of challenged planet as well. So plant-powered pain relief. I help people feel and function optimally. A lot of side effects with medications. I rarely, if ever, prescribe that. I like people to think of food as medicine, farm versus pharma. You may have heard that little thing before. And I'm just going to give you a brief story of 3 kidneys. We only have 2 kidneys. I know I haven't gone, off that we were born with 2 kidneys, most of us. 3 kidneys reminds me of 3 colleagues of mine. They all had 2 kidneys. They're all doctors, actually, and they all had some sort of pain syndrome. One had back pain, one had wrist pain, and the other had knee pain. And they all decided, oh, I'm busy. I'm a busy doctor. Let me just take some Advil. Let me take some Naproxen. Let me take some over the counter. They weren't taking opioids. They weren't getting into any kind of, super scary situation. But all three of them actually damaged their kidney function for just chronically taking anti-inflammatories for pain, right? One to the degree that his wife needed to donate a kidney to him. So I tell you this story that even if you can buy something at your local Walgreens or over the counter, there are side effects with every single medication. So I'd rather treat somebody with an anti-inflammatory diet. A plant-powered diet, has a plant-forward diet. We have the healthiest gut microbiome. It reduces inflammation. You may have heard of SAD, which is the standard American diet, which is super inflammatory. It's got a lot of sugar, salt, oil, fat. It's been engineered to have a bliss point and actually get us addicted. It sounds like I'm a conspiracy theorist, but I'm not. It's really just for, people make a lot of money doing that and people want convenience. So I'm hoping you could, go in a different direction. It boosts our immunity, as we said, and again, eating, a more of a plant-forward, a natural diet can reduce and eliminate pain. A lot of the things that I see in my office are joint pain. So things like osteo and rheumatoid arthritis. I see a lot of injuries. And what I tell my patients, stay away from refined carbohydrates, stay away from dairy, processed foods, and sugar. And some specific, I'm literally prescribing, I spelled Brussels sprouts wrong. I have to edit that. But we want a joint healthy diet is rich in what we call alpha linolenic acid. Brussels sprouts, spinach, peas, tomatoes, beans, and flax seeds. I see a lot of muscle pain, especially at the computer. We're all sitting at the computer, right? We're on our phones, we're texting, text neck. I see a lot of this in my office: neck pain, back pain, shoulder pain. Risk factors are a myriad: poor posture, stress, deconditioning. Again, stay away from processed foods, stay away from sugar, make sure you're hydrated. And I regularly recommend that my patients get up every 30 minutes-ish from sitting. Sometimes it's not possible. Consuming magnesium-rich foods. Here's a list for you, which you can enjoy. Almonds, black beans, spinach. I don't know what's there because the gallery view is blocking it, but that's okay. Turmeric and ginger are really good spices that act as and it's all safe and yummy. Headache pain. I mentioned before, I see a lot of people with migraine, and a lot of times I know there's a sort of technical degree of diagnosis of migraine, but I see a lot of people that sort of call it migraines, but it's really just from postural challenges. Sleep deprivation, stress, poor diet can cause headaches. And I recommend for those people to stay away from dairy, wheat, beets, peanuts, eggs, alcohol, and artificial sweeteners, and try to include more magnesium-rich foods, foods that are rich in vitamin D, such as tofu, soy milk. Soy milk does not elevate the breast cancer risk. I think that's a myth. Mushrooms and calcium-rich foods also are helpful for headaches. Things like broccoli, collards, and kale. This is your lunchtime. I hope you're getting hungry for some good food. Plant-based diet is linked to less severe COVID problems. That's huge. We have, a lot of people don't know this, but it's, I believe it's in the 73% decreased severe COVID symptoms, people on a plant-based diet. As soon as COVID came in, it wasn't the first thing I thought about. The first thing is, should I touch my doorknob or will I die? And then soon after that, I began thinking, wow, I wonder if we can ameliorate the risk if we're actually eating differently and living differently. And sure enough, people have done the science on that. And that, our diets affect everything to the positive if we're sort of following what I'm recommending. Movement, which is the other pillar or driver of health. I sort of have an expanded topic of food, but movement is super important. Of course, exercise. If you had to only pick one, which it's like an impossible choice, but food would be, the strongest pillar. But cardio, strength, balance, high intensity, prevents illness and injury. And by the way, all these 5 pillars that I'm mentioning are very interrelated. It prevents illness and injury if we're sort of in shape and conditioned. It makes it smart. It makes us smarter, actually. There's something called brain-derived neurotropic factor. So if you have kids or you're, just want to be smarter yourself, if they're studying for a test, movement and exercise is huge. We get oxygen to the brain. It's a mood enhancer. Movement makes us feel good. It's a fountain of youth for all of us that feel like we can use a couple of years. And whole food plant-based diet actually helps with movement as it increases our energy endurance and reduces pain and injury. Sleep. I live in a city that historically, never sleeps. New York City. Sometimes people wear it as a badge of honor that, I'm up 24/7 or I only have 4 hours of sleep. You can function, but you're not going to function well. It affects our cognitive function. The sweet spot is between 7 and 9 hours of sleep. So don't feel like you're gluttonous if you're getting those 9. It's nothing wrong with that. And it's actually preferred. Mental health is affected when we're sleep deprived, and it's a time to restore, repair, and reboot. And a whole food plant-based diet improves sleep. Managing stress. Most of us are wired and tired. We have what's called the autonomic nervous system, which is the balance of the sympathetic and the parasympathetic. There'll be no quiz, guys. I hope you could just take away some of these points. We often live in our modern society with a kind of high alert sympathetic load, which is like, oh my God, I got to pick up the kids. Oh, I got to get this work project. Oh, I have to, we're always on that kind of treadmill. The parasympathetic part of the nervous system, unfortunately, gets short shrift. That's the rest and digest and the relaxation part of our nervous system. So believe it or not, simple things like breathing, music, exercise, meditating, eating the way we're talking about can help actually rebalance the nervous system. Can't think of anything more powerful than that. Vices, and credit to my daughter who's like, Ma, you have to add devices onto there because we're all addicted. Things like tobacco, alcohol, pharmacological dependency. We could all use a little digital detox. We're all kind of checking out when we should really check in. And again, the food, because we're talking about plant-powered pain management, eating a cleaner plant-based diet actually helps with our focus and can help, believe it or not, break addictions, food and otherwise. A little sort of thing that I always say is that self-care, we need doctors are not going to make you healthy. I'm in the business of trying to keep people healthy by educating them and, recommending some, as you've heard, some pretty commonsensical things. So I like to say that self-care as healthcare is really, certainly we need doctors, and that's not to be sort of dishonoring myself or the entire medical community, which is a pretty long road and a rigorous path. But the way we're thinking about health is not optimal, and the evidence is there, and that's why I think, Ed, you have these lunch and learns to kind of think differently. So Ralph Waldo Emerson, the first wealth is certainly health. We know this if we're unfortunately recovering from surgery, or even have back pain, or we have a headache, or we're just not our full selves. So I like to sort of get people to a point where they have strategies so they can do the things we all like this, what we want to do and what we like to do, without the anchor and the headwind. And it's certainly possible to make better choices. So I have a bunch of resources. There's some amazing people. I also have a podcast. I don't know if I have this on here. Let me just see what I have here. No, I don't. Okay. So you can take pictures of this if you want. These are available. There's some fantastic books. T. Colin Campbell, who I actually had on my podcast, is sort of a giant in the field. I was just invited to be on his, he has a Center for Nutritional Science. He's like a grandfather, literally grandfather. I think he's actually a great grandfather. He's a grandfather. He actually coined the term plant-based, and he had sort of a 180 shift when he was studying food. He's like, oh my God, like we don't need meat, and it's actually maybe not so good for us. Michael Greger is a fan of mine. He wrote a book called How Not to Die, which is fantastic. There's films, if you're not a big reader, these are all about sort of plant-based opportunities to get healthier. And I sit on a couple of advisory boards. Oh yes, I do have my podcast on here. Okay, so I have lots of information on my website. I'll keep this out. I have interviews that I've actually either hosted on my podcast, or that I've sort of sat for as a guest. I have articles that I've written. It's all free. Just jump on there and listen. I am not a big Instagram poster, but I do have an Instagram account. I would be delighted to hear from you guys by email, which I'm sharing my email. And I think we have some time for questions. I have 10 minutes. I think the next slide is just thank you, but I'll keep that there because that's probably more information than thank you. So I thank you for your kind attention, and we've got 10 minutes plus. I can stay a little after. I'm happy to answer any questions, and I hope that I've shared some valuable information.
Wow, that was awesome, Dr. Rosenthal. Could we go back to group view and unshare the screen so we could see everyone?
Just direct me. I'm stopping
You
the
just did
share.
You just did it.
Fantastic.
You just did it. Wow, beautiful. Very nicely put together.
Thank you.
So friends, now's our opportunity to converse and share, and kind of also just what you heard that you're going to take away and work with. Because as she said, health is the verb. It's action items. And we know a lot of this, but then how do we put it to use?
I want to thank Dr. Rosenthal for being there, and for us as a holistic practitioner, we know this for many, many years. And right now, seeing a doctor of medicine coming to our side, finally, it's such a privilege to have you here, Dr. Rosenthal. Thank you very much.
Oh, it's a pleasure. I've been on your side for 30 plus years.
We need more doctors like you. We need more MDs like so.
Yeah, and we need to work together.
Yes, absolutely.
Integrative wellness is our concept now.
Yeah. I think
Cameron,
has a
what would
question.
you like to share? You can unmute yourself. Cameron, I see your hand up.
Oh, yes, thank you. Thank you. Lower hand, there we go. Thank you, doctor. That was really helpful. I have a quick question. I'm developing a wellness program for caregivers over 50 who are taking care of their parents. And they have a lot of pain that they pretty much ignore. They're doing lifting obese parents to the toilet and to the bed, and so they have a lot of back pain. And they don't have a lot of good self-care to begin with because they're so concerned about their parents. Their sleep is impaired. They're ordering fast food because they don't have time to cook. I mean, I could go on and on. They have depression issues. But regarding the pain, what are the easiest fixes, the things that I can tell them, like, use the Hoyer lift? I mean, just amazing rough place.
Amazing work that you're doing. And when I talked about those telomeres, the studies were actually done on caregivers of young children who are chronically ill or disabled. So I hear you. That is a super stressful situation, and the external stuff is not going to go away so fast. But I know we've all heard this before, but they have to put their oxygen mask on first. And in order to be there, like if they go out with a herniated disc, there's nobody there, right? So, some of the quickies, like I said, I'm super practical. Like if they, go out for, or do stretching or yoga in the room, or in the home, food delivery service, instead of fast food, you got to stock up, you've got to keep my patient said this, the best way to be healthy with food is to have gone food shopping 2 days ago, right? Have it around, right? The sleep thing, everybody's got an individual situation. I don't know if the person has Alzheimer's, they're not able to sleep, breathing, meditating. There's no easy answer, but I would attend to the 5 things that, you just have to take care of yourself first. I had that, I'm a mom of, she's 23 now, but like, I'm always like, oh, should I go for a run? Could I leave her? Luckily she was healthy and I didn't have that kind of stress, but you know what? I had to take care of myself. And then you could be a vessel for care for other people. But if your tanks are empty, you got nothing. So I think the permission actually to do those things are really, really, really important.
Yes.
And I hope I've given you some practical tips, like stock the house, even just, you could get a hula hoop and do that in the room if you can't go out for a walk or a run, right? Like things that are like, bring it in, like, things that you like to do, set yourself up for success. It doesn't have to be grabbing fast food. It could be grabbing, a smoothie or, roasting vegetables. And, maybe the elder parent would enjoy the home cooking smell in the house, right? But we're not machines and we need to kind of fill up. So I
Yes.
hope that's helpful.
Yeah, thank you.
Sure.
So Dr. Rosenthal, Holly has a good question comment. Hello, my sister has been using oxycodone and other strong medications for knee surgery, auto accidents. It seems like the doctors only give her 10 minutes for appointments. It worries me that she takes so many meds. How to lessen the meds. Recently, she started taking CBD cream for neuropathy and back pain. So there was another comment also on CBD and so forth.
Yeah, what cannabis product do you recommend for pain and the migraine?
Yeah.
You did promise at the beginning that you will give some brands.
Yeah. It's well, no brand. I in New York, so I'm a physician that prescribes medical cannabis. So it's a very
I see.
right. So brands of it. I'll tell you what. I sit on an advisory board for a. I'm not advertising for them, but I just know because again, my daughter, who I brought up a couple of times, did some research for them. It's a company called Plant People, and they're based in New York, and they have some brands. I haven't even thought about this honestly, but you're asking the question. I know their process. It's a little bit of the Wild West, and there's testing, but not really. So when I speak of medical cannabis in New York, it's a registration. It's a very serious. We don't have it. We have a medical program. So I know that it's pharmaceutical grade. It's not pharmaceutical grade. It's reliable. It's tested. There's sort of the ratio of THC and CBD. I think this may be for another talk because I don't get into the weeds. But I could just really speak to, just because I happen to know the process of a reputable company called Plant People. You could look stuff up, but I beyond the scope of what we could talk, I want to be available for other things. Maybe everybody wants to talk about this, but I don't know. So
well, I see another topic in another season. But yes,
that's what
for sure.
Yeah, Zachary has raised
That's
a
right.
hand for a long time. So before we address the question from somebody else, go
Thank
ahead,
you
Zachary.
so much. As a vegan for a while now, so it's same with my partner. We both kind of struggle with getting iron into our diets as through whole foods, and obviously not getting our heme iron in. What are your thoughts on it? Do we need heme iron, or are supplements manageable? And then also with the supplement side, having negative side effects for like GI issues and hemorrhoids, and how to avoid that.
Yeah, supplemental iron could be constipating, as you alluded to. I'm vegan and I do not take an iron supplement. To be fair, I haven't really tested my iron. I would just not as the more important, I don't say more important. B12 is important to supplement with if you're vegan. So the iron situation, I mean, it's menstruating female, there's different you can get your iron tested to see where it's at, but I wouldn't just, I do not regularly supplement with iron. The only thing that comes to mind, I want to say that maybe black beans have iron. I know like blackstrap molasses for whatever reason when I thought I was, but I'm not really eating that every day, or I'm never. So take a look at sort of what foods have a high iron content. I would go food first. I would not categorically just supplement with iron. I'd be more concerned about you should
B12.
be supplementing with B12. Yeah,
Okay, thank you so much.
sure.
A friend of mine, the question from Julie, a friend of mine recently suggested that I look into energy medicine yoga to help the pain relief as well as for the depression. Is Dr. Rosenthal in the position to address this?
Well, I mean, energy medicine, I don't know what that is exactly. Like people ask me if I practice energy medicine, like, yes, I do, because I put my hands on people and there's a chemistry of, I don't know what you mean exactly. Like there's, Reiki, there's, oh, can you see me still? Oh, can you hear me?
Let's go to speaker, go to gallery view, and we should be able to see everybody.
Okay, I don't know what happened there, but you can
Are
hear
you
me?
sharing your screen?
I
You
am.
can unshare your screen and we'll go back to gallery.
Oh,
Okay, good,
here we go.
good.
Here we go. Okay.
Yeah, we get to see a lot of
So,
little faces. and voices.
energy medicine and yoga. Movement and food, yoga is fine, if you like it. So there's so many things you can do to sort of improve. I think the question is about energy medicine, yoga, and depression. Like, what do I think about that?
Mhm.
I think that everybody's sort of movement is important for sure. There is absolutely nothing wrong with yoga if you like yoga, but you can do whatever. I'm more of a sort of, the energy medicine is passive, the yoga is active, right?
Mhm.
So I'm always a fan of doing sort of active things to kind of get the body moving. So I have nothing against either of those, but I don't really have enough information of sort of the root cause of it or why, or but for pain and mood, the things I talked about would sort of be a good idea.
Okay.
MT,
MT, go ahead.
Hi, do you have any recommendations for someone who has clumping of platelets and low red blood count? Who's a vegan?
Who's a vegan? Yeah, I don't know if that's because, I don't know if that's causal. So that's sort of like beyond I'm not a hematologist. I don't know why. My first thought is, are they hydrated? Don't know that. Clumping of, I don't know. I don't know. I don't have enough information.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I can't attribute, it doesn't sound to me like that's a causal, vegan causes platelet clumping. I've never heard that.
Okay. No, I was just thinking in terms of the diet, if that could possibly have affected, but you just said you don't think that there's a relationship there.
I don't think so. I would be thinking about that because you don't want kind of clumpy platelets, you don't want clotting, right?
Right.
So I don't know. I don't have enough information, but that's something I would not say, like a plant-based diet would be causing that. I have never heard that.
Okay. Great, thank you.
My pleasure.
there's a question about plant-based and diabetes recovery.
Oh yeah, diabetes recovery or reversing diabetes, is there a specific question? Because,
I think you said information about plant-based diet for diabetes, pre-diabetes. Someone else said suggestions of WFPB. I guess that's whole food plant-based for diabetics. So obviously blood sugar is a common issue for people. And within a plant-based diet, what's type of percentages of grains versus veg, fruits, seeds, nuts, because, a general whole foods is important, but then it's how you kind of.
Yeah, I personally go easy on the grains. I mean,
That's right.
If you're eating barley and oatmeal all day long without a lot of fruits and vegetables, that could be problematic, right?
Right.
So, the balance of that, I'd say, mostly fruits and vegetables. Like that should be like the mainstay of what you're eating. And I always like to also get people thinking as far as dosages, right? So if you like a grain bowl, that's great. Maybe this much grain and this much vegetables and beans, right? And beans also have a ton of fiber. I didn't speak about that in the talk. Fiber's huge. Like, and I don't mean anything that comes in a, taking extra fiber, but fruits and vegetables, you get your fiber. Beans, tremendous fiber. Nuts, a lot of people are afraid of nuts because, oh, they're fattening, or, but you get like a little discount actually of, believe it or not, 30% of the calories if you're eating nuts as opposed to nut butter, because of the way it's sort of digested. So, I mean, sitting and kind of consuming a 2-pound bag of nuts, I would not, but don't be afraid of nuts. A lot of people are a little afraid of nuts from a sort of weight control situation, but from a blood sugar is no joke. People, and you may actually surprise your doctors or,
Did we freeze up?
I think she did.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So Dr. R, you're frozen. I don't know if you could do anything about that.
Maybe her connection just dropped or something.
Yeah. But we do raise the question, what if I'm allergic or reactive to beans? Everyone has their strengths and reactions and history and stress and cultural background.
Okay, she's back. She's back on her phone, I guess. You're still on mute, Dr. Rosenthal?
can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
I'm on my phone. I had
Boy, that was very agile. Congratulations. That was good.
Oh, I'm practical. So
I know, I saw that. That was quick. You're a dancer.
I can't see you all, but yeah, sorry about that. Did I miss a question?
Oh, it was something about our friend and colleague who's from Indian tradition. And so, grew up eating dal and rice and veg and whatnot, largely vegetarian, still dealing with some pre-diabetic issues and wonders, what to focus on, and said that she has some sensitivities to beans. So then what?
Yeah, there's there's also a book called Plant Paradox, which is sort of kind of debunked to stay away from beans, but I don't know what the situation is. Thank you for everybody. I'm getting some of these chats. My pleasure, and thank you for attending. I'm just responding to what's popping up. I mean, if you have to listen to your body, like I said, the body doesn't lie. So unfortunate if you don't like beans, but some people, or it doesn't agree with you, but I often recommend for people to try things in different forms, like hummus is actually chickpeas, right? So some people do better, with beans in a different form, or like a lentil soup or different types of beans. So I would try to get creative.
Yeah. So friends, I think we're pretty much at the end of the conversation. I'm taking one more question, or also I'd love to hear some takeaways. I think it's good for us as learners to share what we're learning and what we're going to put into practice by being here, not just picking the brain of our famous East Coast Dr. Rosenthal. But what are we gonna do with this lesson? How are we going to put it into practice? Because we want to be actionable. Who can share some of that?
Yes, everybody, it's shy today.
Don't jump up at once, or else I'll call on you.
Eat more
maybe
whole food
everybody-
plants. Oops. Eat
Go
more
ahead.
whole food plants in their closer to their natural state.
That's right. So
I
that's
would say.
great. Yeah, eat the plants as they're in their original state as much as you can.
But
Out
also
of the bag, out of the box as much as you can.
But also what Dr. Rosenthal mentioned, don't forget that honor your body and the responses the body is giving you, because body knows what it can and cannot take. So that's also a key from this, right?
I would say overeating is a problem, and it can be a problem for vegetarians and vegans too, because they may not hit a satiety point, and so they may just keep eating beyond the point of need. So, knowing how to say enough is important.